You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. We're super excited for episode number 2. Today we're going to dive into the big topic of vaginal exams. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, necessary, unnecessary, what are they? Yeah, I'm Sophia.
I'm Emma.
This is Leah.
And where do we start?
So today I was thinking about a story that somebody told in Heart and Hands, the original intro to midwifery, that I think we all did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yep.
And there was a couple doulas in the program at the same time. There was actually a couple who were not planning to become midwives, but just wanted more information to incorporate into their doula practice. But somebody was talking about early labor and, first time moms, I think primarily or completely. And she said something about like the drama of early labor or the primip, something about like this show or this dramatic thing that happens in early labor where people get so caught up in the idea that labor's starting and, sort of like act like they're in active labor. And I was super pissed off about it. It just, to me, felt like, and I was like self-righteous and had just started. And, but there was something about it that just felt really dismissive of that time. And since then I've evolved obviously significantly. And for me, I've found, I don't know if this is for you, Sophia, but that there's many transitions in labor, right? But like there's two kind of milestone transitions that I've found. And one is from early labor to active labor. And just like the transition from, dilating to moving into pushing, it feels really intense. And I've showed up for births where women, I don't know, they could be 10, they could be 2, contractions are really frequent. They seem like they're kind of in labor land. And then I do a vaginal exam and they could be 1 centimeter. And I don't know what that is, but it's like, as soon as we have that information, I feel like things really slow down. And it's like I don't know if it's a reality check, but I found that, and like respecting how they feel, but also just like, okay, like you're just not quite there yet. So that's a reason that I have done vaginal exams for a long time. And I'm obviously questioning that now, but I don't know, Sophia, what your experience of that has been.
Yeah, I don't do vaginal exams very often. The last time I did, I only did it once last year, and it was on like day 3 of labor. And the mom was like, I'm just kind of curious what's going on. It's like, I don't blame you. Yeah. And so my thought is, if she needs support enough to have called me, then it doesn't really matter where she's at. Yeah. Like, I'm going to be there to support her. And, hearing a lot of women express disappointment in finding out where they were at when they were checked and that they thought they were farther along. And as a doula, seeing somebody get checked and be told that they're 5 centimeters and then, a few minutes later, her feeling like, I just can't do this. If this is 5, like, I can't do it. I want my epidural. and, she's holding her baby 10 minutes later.
Mhm.
So, you can get in this place where you're just like, I don't know, you just are more in your head. You're trying to decipher how long it took you to get there and how much longer that means you have, and versus just like experiencing birth and being in it. And I owe a lot of this mindset, 'cause it's not how I learned about midwifery. When I had a preceptor. We did vaginal exams, and of course, we tried to limit them and things like that. But I owe a lot of this mindset to taking the radical birth keeping school, um, and yeah, just the idea of like, do our fingers belong in someone else's body, and can it actually tell us anything?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, Leah, I know we've been at a birth where we had a mom who was completely dilated for 9 hours before
Mhm.
she started pushing.
Mhm.
And we've had, moms where you can't even feel her cervix. This was when I was a student. We had a mom who wanted to be checked. It was just at her prenatal. She was just curious. And the midwife couldn't even reach her cervix. It was so posterior and tucked back. And she had her baby the next day. And so the more I hear these stories, or like the mom who walked around for 2 weeks at 6 centimeters, before she even went into labor. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what information is it actually
Mhm.
telling us?
I feel like prenatal vaginal exams are so dated
Yeah.
and completely ridiculous.
Mhm.
I mean, with June, it was a similar thing where I was 41 weeks and a day, I think. So, like 40 weeks for a first timer, basically. And I went in, and this was again like a nurse midwife with a midwife practice, delivering at the hospital. But she checked me, and I was, cervix was firm and high and posterior. And she, sort of flippantly like told me to take castor oil. She's like, you should do castor oil because this baby's nowhere near coming out. And I went home and I cried because I was like, I'm gonna have a C-section. I'm nowhere near. And then I went into labor that evening, I think.
Mhm.
I think I had some show that evening, and then I had her like 48 hours labor or something. But yeah, vaginally, prenatally, vaginal exams are completely worthless to me.
Mhm. Yeah. And so the most, common time to have one is when you either arrive at the hospital or your place of birth if it's a birth center, or potentially when your midwife arrives at your house if you have someone supporting you in that way. Um, and so like, when would you want to check someone? Is it, something that happens every time, or just depends on the situation?
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Make sure you're leaning into that.
yeah, so I just wanted to know what your take was on checking for complete dilation to avoid anterior lips, because
Interior lips aren't real.
right,
Everyone has them.
exactly. But we used to, and I've seen midwives want to push back the lip on before starting to push, and I'm curious about that because I read that they're not real, and we should just be letting people push when they want to push.
To me, it just means you're not fully dilated.
Yeah. They're real. I just think that it's normal part of birth. Like, I just feel like so many times if I do check people, it's like, oh, you're dilated. You have a little bit of a lip.
Mhm.
And it's like so many people that it feels like there's more people that have it. There's definitely more people that have it than don't.
Mhm.
So I have a conversation prenatally with clients about vaginal exams. And I feel like it's something that people tend to ask about, if not at the initial meeting, then definitely prenatally. Like, so do you do vaginal exams, and how often? Which is cool because like that's a fairly new thing because people don't want them as much.
Mhm.
And just that prenatally it means absolutely nothing. And people who are doing concurrent care, like their providers tend to really want to do them, which is another podcast. But
Mhm.
another podcast topic. But But I talk about during labor, and I used to, until a couple years ago, say, and this was from my preceptor, you know, when I show up to the birth, I like to kind of get settled, and then I like to do a vaginal exam within the first hour or so, just to see where you're at. And that was like, you know, and the reasoning for that was most of the time when I showed up for first babies, it was really early. And there were several sort of like quote concerns I had about that. Second time moms, I don't think I ever do vaginal exams unless it's like requested or it feels like it's been days and days. What about you, Sophia, with that?
About second time moms?
You don't check anybody.
Yeah,
so.
I don't really check anybody
So
usually.
that answers that question. But yeah, I think
it's really hard to not check a first time mom.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something, especially because it's my training and just like the feeling of wanting to know as much as possible. But I don't know, I just think there's some magic in like being in the unknown with her, you know, that I only know what I can see in her, and
Yes,
and that it doesn't really matter anyways.
Mm-hmm. So I found a really, and this is something that I feel like I talk less about, but I used to, when I talk about the day or the night, you know, when her birth begins, is that a really common scenario is that first time moms sort of start surges in the evening. Like if they have a partner comes home. If they have other children, they go to bed, and it's just like, you know, whether it's show or stronger breaths and hicks or whatever it is, like that's kind of this like, oh, this is different. This is labor. Mm-hmm. So for first time moms, especially, they feel that and the excitement, of course. And this is like my exact birth story. So I empathize, and I've just seen this a lot, is that the excitement and like the desire to be further along in Candyland, you know, on the map, they will stay up. Seriously, it's like Gumdrop Mountain. Chutes and ladders. You're 4 centimeters. Go back. Don't ever say that to the client. No, but yeah, it's like I stayed up all night, like listening to Jeff Buckley, and that was great. But by the time I like really kicked into active labor, I was super exhausted, which is fine, right? People get tired. But what I've told people in the past is like, I tell them now, like if things start in the evening, rest is what you're going for, you know, to save your energy. And in my experience, one of the biggest reasons that first time moms have felt like they needed to go to the hospital for, you know, for some pain management or whatever, is they were up all night and then they're up all day.
Yeah.
And then they have their baby the next morning, but they're just fried.
Yeah.
I tell the families I work with that anyways. I tell them all to be prepared for like a 2-day experience, because you don't want to think it's going to go fast because your mom and sisters went fast and then not take care of your body and be in this marathon. You thought it was just going to be a sprint and you've wasted all your energy. And that, yes, everyone gets tired. I mean, my labor was 6 hours and I was tired. I think that's just part of the like hormone cascade that like helps you get into that relaxed state, is the feeling of exhaustion. So I tell everyone, it doesn't matter how long or how short, you're going to get tired. That's just part of it. But that to prepare for the 2-day experience and pace yourself. And I do a lot of reminders when they are checking in with me, when they, you know, think they're in labor, about, you know, resting if you feel like you need to, eating if you feel like you need to, because those two things get harder and harder as it goes on, and then staying hydrated and peeing. But yeah, that we just always kind of plan for it to be a longer experience, and then if it's not, that's wonderful.
So it's like a similar conversation.
Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess the conversations I have with my clients about vaginal exams is, I tell a lot of stories about the times when it told us nothing, you know, and the times that it was a big disappointment for her because it told her lies about her body, like when her body was like that mama who was told she was 5 and then had her baby shortly after. She was not by the time those fingers came out of her body, but the feeling she was feeling in her body felt so intense. And so she was like pairing that with this is what 5 feels like. And so it sent her into this like panic, you know, of like, well, then I can't do 10 if this is what 5 feels like. And I mean, we went to a birth where somebody called us in labor that we had never met before. And I called Leah, like, hey, do you want to go to a birth?
Yes.
Somebody we don't know. And so that was exciting because it was a first time mom. And how long were we with her for? We got there probably like noon Saturday, and her baby was born the next morning. But like, if you remember, she was like, seemed like she was in it. And I think it was still early. I mean, I never checked her the whole time, but she was in it and she had all her friends around her, and she was like working hard. And I have a feeling if I had checked her, it would have been one of those conversations like disappointment, because she thought her baby was coming, like for sure. She thought her baby was coming. She said to me, and she even tried pushing like that like before the sun went down or something. She was like, I think I need to push. And I was like, there's a difference between like wanting to or thinking you need to and actually pushing. Just, you know, listen to your body. And she toyed around with pushing and was like, no, this isn't it. But so she really did think she was farther along than clearly she was. And I remember you and I were, Leah, we were toying back about the like, you know, well, what if this? Are you sure we shouldn't check her? You know, because maybe it'll give her the opportunity or the permission to like, oh, bring it all down, like just drop the energy, like recognize where she's really at. But I also didn't know her well enough, and I hadn't had all the conversations that I typically have with families prenatally. And so I didn't want to do anything that would send her to the hospital for her epidural because she just couldn't keep going, you know, and that she could only keep going if she thought in her head she was farther along, you know, and that she was almost there. So I never did. And she had her baby at home and it was beautiful. And I remember being so emotional when that baby was born because I had no idea who this family was really. And we were, you know, there were moments where we were like, okay, well, what if she does go to the hospital and she was, you know, pushing on a swollen cervix and all these stories you can come up and they find out that her midwife never checked her once and how like, you know, inappropriate that is. And, you know, just, yeah, all these like fears that come up. And I realized that I was doing the same thing I warn families not to do. Like, don't try to like create story that isn't even happening. You know, am I about to perform a vaginal exam because I'm scared of what could potentially happen versus doing a vaginal exam because, you know, of a specific situation that's going on where you could really use the information.
So one thing that has changed since we started working together, I think, is that when I've talked to moms who are in labor, and this is, I feel like most of the time we're talking about vaginal exams, we're talking about first-time moms.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. Yeah, in labor. But like, just to put that out there, that's pretty much the only people I'm talking about. But who have called in, it feels really clear to me that it's really early, and that can shift. But for me to get all my stuff, wake up, you know, potentially like drink coffee in the middle of the night because I'm a total caffeine addict, and go over there to sort of explain that feels like it will tire me out. And obviously I'm not the most important person in the room, but I also don't want to be up all night with somebody that really should be resting. and I can sleep on their couch, but for me, it's not comfortable. I'm not going to get sleep. And we're not robots, like we're there for people, but we also need to care for ourselves in order to like honestly, if we're at, I don't know, for me, if I'm at someone's house for 3 days, like I'm a different midwife.
Yeah.
It's just like, and we're midwives, so we're used to being up all night, but at that point it does change the care.
Well, and that was at a time too where you only called me when it was clear the baby was about to fall out,
Exactly.
and now we don't do that. Now we show up at the same time and we are a team, and we have rules. If it's after midnight and mom is not actively pushing, that we like start to spell each other, so someone's always well rested. So we've kind of been setting our practice up to where we can have the patience necessary to just let it unfold, and that somebody's always fresh.
Yeah, that was a game changer. Like knowing that if things aren't imminent, I can sleep for 2 hours, and then you can sleep for 2 hours for sure. So that's a big shift. So I found that, and when I've said that to people, sometimes they're pissed, and I get it, Where do we get time-wise?
But we're good. I'm just going to write down another topic, is like how we set up our practice.
Yes.
Yeah, how we work together.
But, and it's understandable, and we're serving them, but I've had people be kind of pissed, like they really want me to come. And I'm like, okay, I'll come, but I'm just letting you know I may not stay. And more I've had that conversation with people, and it's very rare that happens. I feel like it happened a lot more definitely at the first center where I worked, but in my early practice. So,
see, in my conversation's a little different, because I tell people that it doesn't really matter where you are in labor. If you want me there, I'll be there.
Sure.
But that it's a conversation that we have together, and we just check in and how are things going. And, if you're like, oh, we're still good, we're just going to like have dinner and go on a walk. Or if like that mom we talked about that we met in labor, the reason she ended up having a home birth is she was planning a birth center birth, and she got there because she felt like things were really intense. She needed a lot of support. She was vomiting a lot, and they checked her and she was 1 centimeter. And so they were sending her home, and she was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm exhausted. I can't stop vomiting and I need support. And they told her to go to the hospital for morphine. And she went home feeling abandoned, and like, I wanted to have this natural birth experience, and their first like suggestion is morphine. And she was just really confused, and I, long story short, had us come over. And so like that story too, it's like, it doesn't matter that she was 1 centimeter. She needed support, and like, that's what we're signing on for, is support. And that's why I think having a team, and not just one midwife, but like having a team that can rally, and like, yes, because we are human. I mean, the birth I was at for 5 days, it was me and the dad and the doula, and we were taking shifts, and we would go home to shower. It's like, like, it wasn't like we were staring at her for 5 days a week, we were all trying to take care of ourselves. And that's why it's important in those long births, or the really intense ones, to like have a solid birth team that isn't rushing your process, but just like can hold space for it.
I think that's a lesson too that took me a little while to learn, is like wanting to be a perfect midwife, and like not wanting to admit that I needed breaks. Not wanting to ask, like, I need to go home and take a shower, and so I totally get the I think the vaginal exam really early in labor as a way to check in with women and kind of say, like, this is where you're at, and I know things feel really intense, but chances are you have a while to go. And what I've found is when that happens, people aren't like, every once in a while people are like bummed, but that's an emotion that they can process, and things slow down and the vomiting stops. And it's like, somehow that awareness, and not that labor completely stops and then it's like this terrible thing, but it's like, okay, it's 11 p.m., 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, like, I'm gonna take a bath or have a glass of wine or whatever feels appropriate. And then I get a call at like 5 a.m. That's like, yeah, I slept pretty well. You know, or every 10 minutes I'd wake up, but then I would lay back down, and it just feels like such a game changer. But yeah, I mean, it as far as like what can change, I could get a call an hour later and things have really shifted. It's just the question of like, how often does that happen, and does it benefit women to not maybe not be real, but say this is usually what happens.
Yeah. And I guess more and more too, I'm just trying to, my like hope is that after the whole birth experience is done, is that she realizes she needed nothing except for people holding space. And that she actually didn't need all the stuff she thought she needed. Like she didn't need somebody checking her and telling her where she was at. She didn't need, you know, permission to push. She didn't need, all the things that we're told we have to have. Like it's such a common question is, but how will I know I need to push, you know, if you're not going to check me? That was actually a question that Emma and I just had this morning at our appointment. How will I know if I need to push if we're not checking? And so just like reminding them that their body
will push.
Is the one running the show, and that we're just watching and waiting.
And sometimes first-time moms whose baby's been really low don't feel the urge to push, but that's the whole thing. Emma, tell us how you feel.
Yeah, what have you experienced?
What have you experienced with preceptors? And like, I know you're still like forming your little midwife soul, and it will keep evolving.
I'm still forming my midwife soul. Whose phone is that? Emma's on call. Please forgive her.
Okay, sorry.
It's not an excuse for all.
Oh my God. You know what? I put it on silent and I realized I just turned it on as loud as I could and thinking I was putting it on silent. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I think we all have to unlearn based off of the training that we have. And, you know, the only experiences I've seen are the standard of care is doing midwife will come and check. And I've seen some moms be really happy that they know, and having that information in their head can help them progress faster. Other times it's like what you're saying. I mean, it can be really detrimental to someone that thinks that they have made a ton of progress, and to only have dilated by, you know, another centimeter or so really takes the air out of your tires for sure. You know, I think that we should be leading by what our clients want us to do solely. And some women want that and others don't. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I remember too that the mama that we met in labor, she asked me probably like 3 or 4 different times, not to check her, but just like, are you sure you don't need to check me? And I was like, no, I mean, not unless you want me to, but it's pretty uncomfortable and it won't tell me when your baby's going to be here. So I don't see any like reason I should check you. And yeah, and I mean, I heard you say that it helps them progress quicker, but how would you even know that?
You wouldn't.
Like, unless you reverse time and like didn't check them. And
yeah.
It's like a theoretical, I guess.
I think it's just like in your head.
Yeah. I think it's just so great to recognize how unnecessary vaginal exams
Do you think
are.
The heaters?
I've checked before.
Okay,
How unnecessary they are routinely
Yeah.
because of how little I've actually done of them in my practice, and even with first time moms. And so I think it's just nice to know that they just really aren't as necessary as we think they are in our culture. Um, and yeah, I mean, just we're trying to get something out. So why would I like be putting my fingers in? And the fact that it really is the baby's position and how low they are that has more to do than how dilated you are, because we know how quickly that can change. And yeah, I feel like it's harder to just have patience. And so I think it's a skill that I'm like continuously practicing, sitting on my hands and just keep trusting and keep trusting and keep having patience.
What is that called? Where it's the ball? No, what is it called? Where
The rhombus of Michael.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Have you seen that? As
The hell is a woman's body named after?
All of
know.
all
I'm
of
like,
our
I'm not even
pets are-
gonna try. I
Rhombus
don't know
of
what that
Michael is
Yeah.
like something from Starship.
I
Galactica.
know.
Yeah, fallopian
Yeah.
tubes. Yeah,
Have you ever?
we could do a podcast on that.
Yeah.
I'll
In the
make that
queue.
note.
But do you feel like the things that we learn in textbooks about the outward signs of where they could possibly be dilated are actually true in your own practice?
Without like actually checking them,
Without touching anyone.
but what I mean is I see it, but then I don't actually do a vaginal exam to confirm what I'm seeing, you know? So I don't have that, but I definitely feel like we point things out to each other all the time, Leah, where we like, you know, we'll point to her back opening or the purple line or things like that. And it always seems like, you know, she approaches pushing pretty soon after, if not already. But again, we're not necessarily going internally to confirm our findings.
Right.
So yeah, but I feel like for sure there's
Purple
lots of
line,
other
I feel
signs.
like we pointed out to each other,
Mhm.
and that seems to be
Yeah. But again, we didn't like check vaginally.
Right.
We just, the baby was born, you know, within the hour.
It is interesting though.
Mhm.
Yeah. So 2 things.
Mhm.
One is that when I've listened to free birth stories, which like let's not get too into free birth because that's also a whole other thing.
Another
But
episode.
There's lots of, and then I checked myself, and I feel like I've had.
Oh, you mean like the mom physically checks? Yeah.
Right, which is different, obviously, than us doing it, and she's choosing it and whatever. But she's still getting information, right? And does that affect where she's at with her labor, like her psychological, like doing it herself and be like, okay, I'm partially open or whatever it is, like does that affect the labor of somebody who's not doing it with the attendants, or someone there to protect her, quote unquote. But so there's that. And then something that I was just thinking about while we were talking, and also something that what I've started to tell people about vaginal exams, or like an evolving way of talking about it and then practicing as well, because we're all trying to evolve, is that, you know, I explain to people that the numbers are arbitrary because, you know, in midwifery school, we used to use these different things like, oh, this is a 4, this is an 8. But the truth is like, anything that's not 1 and not 10, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like you said, Sophia, I mean, we've done a lot of births, I feel like, where things feel stalled and we didn't even check, but we do some like spinning baby stuff, and it shifts, and then the labor like really picks up.
Yeah.
And we had no idea where her dilation was. But just this idea of like, these are the 2 things that could even mean anything, and then they also probably don't, is like, what I've said to people is like, it's early, or you're not quite there, but you're doing great, you know?
And then like, I don't know. I also used to check first time moms before they started pushing to make sure that they're like weren't pushing on a cervix that wasn't all the way dilated or an anterior lip. And I don't know. I don't really do that anymore.
Well, so I was just thinking about the last birth we were at. It was her 4th baby. And at one point she announces that I feel like I need to push. And we just kind of said, wonderful, listen to your body. And then for like a little over 2 hours, she pushed on and off. She would push during one contraction, and then like 4 or 5 more surges would go by and nothing. And eventually she pushed more frequently. But I remember thinking afterwards that I bet if I had checked her, she probably would have been like 7 centimeters or something. Like, I bet she wasn't completely dilated, and that those occasional pushes were actually her body's way of like moving her baby down or helping to rotate her baby or like get her baby lower. That the pushing can be that too, that it could be help with rotation. And I've seen that in the hospital as a doula, a mom get checked and because she's pushing and they need to make sure there's no cervix, and they're like, she's only 7, like make sure you don't let her push, like as her doula. And they leave the room and they're like, should I push? And I'm like, listen to your body, do whatever your body tells you to do. And she's got her baby 20 minutes later, and it's like, yeah,
What number baby was that mom though?
In the one in the hospital?
No, the one that we did.
It was her 4th baby.
Right.
Yeah, but the one I'm talking about had her baby 20 minutes later. It was her first baby.
Right.
And she went from 7 centimeters to baby. And from what I've heard about telling moms not to push in birth stories is that it's the worst part of their experience is being told not to push when you're pushing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big no-no for us.
Yeah.
Telling a woman not to do almost anything in labor just feels really counterintuitive.
Yeah, especially if her body's doing it.
What was I gonna say? I don't know.
Pause for reflection.
Yeah, I guess just telling women that, like, with baby 2, 3, 4, whatever, I just say I really don't do vaginal exams. I prefer not to, and I sort of explain why. And
what if they're pushing for a long time?
Well,
like, would there be a point where you would want to?
Not unless they really, really wanted me to. I mean, to me, whatever, et cetera, baby they're pushing and it's not coming down. It's like positional, cord length, It would be more like a conversation of like, how are you feeling? Do you feel stuck for some reason? I think it's just like they've felt that sensation before. So yeah, it's uncommon. And when it has happened to me, it's like always positional. I had a birth in Utah where I checked her because we checked, it was a 2nd-time mom. And she'd been pushing for a while, and her first birth was super fast. Is this still recording? And we were all kind of like, and she was pissed. She was like, why is this taking so long? So I checked her, and what I felt so strange and like squishy. And I like, there was a part of me for a second that was like, oh my God, it's the brain, which is a terrible thing to joke about. But I was like, what is this? And then she would push, and the adorable little baby face would come out and look at us and little cheeks. And then when she would stop pushing, the little face would get scrunched and go back. And it was like, of course. Yeah, of course it's taking. And she had her baby vaginally, with the face presentation. And had, her face was swollen for like 24 hours, not even that long. And then she was fine. But, I did check her and we found out that was why. So whether or not that was beneficial, I don't know. I just love that story.
Like, what is
like, I thought maybe it was a butt at first because I could feel the cheeks and I was like,
wrong cheeks.
I was like that. But then like, feel the eye. You know, and I was like, I'm not open, but I was like, what's the fur? I mean, it was just, it was really, really bizarre. Yeah, and I think the thing with first-time moms too, being like, do you feel ready to push and you want to push, or do you feel like you have to? Like your body,
Like you
is
can't
doing
not.
it. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I tell people the number's arbitrary and that you can go from 3 to 10 in an hour, and I've totally seen that. But the question, I guess, is like, do you want to do the, hey, check in, this is really early, and then the thing with the complete too, which I used to do, which I found extremely helpful, was actually when women were like, you know, throwing their clothes off and like, I can't do this, and like packing their bag, like wanting to go to the hospital. And I would say like, okay, like I have no agenda about your birth and I'm totally support you, but do you want to check really quick just to see where you're at? And it happens a lot because that stage of like, fuck this, I'm over it, is often transition, that they're like 9 or 10. And hearing that, it's like, total 180.
I guess that's what I meant, Sophia.
I've never had anybody,
because I've seen that happen.
I've never had anybody do that. I mean, I've had people be like, this is really hard, I can't do this, but I've never had anybody like heading out the door. Because usually they tell me that they start thinking about what it would take to get to the hospital, and they're like, no, I can't do that.
Sure.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
Wow.
I've seen that.
Yeah. I think it's just, I mean, even after you explain like what it would take to go to the hospital, and people are still like, I don't care, I'm just over it. And I feel like it's happened less and less, but it was definitely something that I feel like happened. And as a doula, a lot in the hospital, when people who really like, they had expressed a big desire prenatally to have an unmedicated birth. And they're like, you know, I'm over this, I want an epidural, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say like, okay, but do you want to get checked just before like you make that decision? And it's the same thing. Almost always they're like 8+ centimeters, and it just completely changes how they feel about it and what's going on. And then, you know, 9 out of 10 times, like they would go on to not have an epidural.
And it's also sometimes those people that didn't want to have an epidural and want to have an epidural, but they're in transition, and then it's like, well, there's not enough time to have an epidural, so in the hospital.
I mean, I've had people who get epidurals when I did hospital stuff, like at 10. Totally.
I was gonna say I know somebody who was pushing, and she got an epidural.
But you know, first time moms.
First time mom.
And I just say, like, by the time we get there and get checked in and all of that, like you could have your baby in your arms. Whereas if you go and get an epidural and all that stuff. But I guess it's just like a tool that I've had for people.
Yeah.
And I've found it to be, I've had women tell me they wanted to make out with me because they were so happy that I checked them when they were 10. I mean, not very many, but just like, I just wanted to grab, there was one of my favorite clients. She wouldn't mind. Hi, Jessica. She was like, I just wanted to grab your face and make out with you. I was like, that would have been awkward.
Oxytocin, though.
But yeah, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, and I usually tell people that it, you know, can be a tool, and it's not a tool I use very often. But if you're ready, if you're needing to make a decision, and that's going to influence your decision, you know, is where am I kind of thing.
Right. Like, what information is that going to give you
that
you would do something about?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of why we did it after the 3 days. She was like, not really ready to go to the hospital per se, but she was like, okay, it's been a while, and if I'm like not even dilated, I gotta know that, you know. And she was like 7, and she was so happy. Yeah, so
maybe an option we could put out there that if I do exams is like, hey, I really don't do them, but the only 2 that I felt, or I guess like sometimes it can let us know if things are really early and you feel like they're really not, because I think that's a good reality check for some people, you know. Or like, yes, you're complete. Yay. You asked me and we're here. And anything else is like, you're dilating still.
Mhm.
And it's not like, like for a little while, it was like, you're halfway there, or you're more than halfway, which like could be 5.5, or it could be 9.5, but just really not putting a number on it and just doing it that way. In Utah, and this was like grand multips. I mean, it would literally be like, you would check someone, because we did that a lot, who was 3, and then she would like sit upright and walk into another room, and then like her baby would fall out. So it's really irrelevant for anyone, but especially like not a first baby.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking a lot, but that's okay.
We're the only other ones here to talk.
Gemini is coming out.
Yes.
Look at me, I'm a midwife. I think, at least for me, there's like a few moments, either as a doula or a student, for the most part, but I think, as a midwife too, but where you like witness something and it haunts you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like a visceral reaction to it. And it's not just like, oh, that was terrible. Like, oh, I'm never going to do this, but like makes me ill. And it comes up for me when I'm like considering doing vaginal exams. And it wasn't actually that, it was a couple years ago, but I was a midwife, but it was a friend of a friend, and I was being her doula. And kind of like hybrid, where I came to her house first and like was listening to Babe and all that stuff, and then we transferred. And
like a Montrese.
yeah, I didn't do all the prenatal care though, so it was more just like a doula with benefits. That's what I call it.
Yes.
We got there, and it was a first baby, and it was UCSF, a teaching hospital, and it was a lot of new residents. And as it got closer to, it was just her baby wasn't rotating, and she didn't have an epidural, but she did not. But there was something up with her baby, and they were trying to get him to rotate. And what ended up happening was, I swear to God, every 30 minutes, a different resident would come in and either like, just check her. Like I would turn around like, oh, my name is Joe, whatever. And I turn around and he was doing an exam. Yeah. And it was like, clearly she had become a case study.
Yeah.
I can't even count the number of exams they did on her. Her baby was super deep OP. That's what it was. And it was like horrifying. And I remember just looking and being like, why are you doing these exams? Like, what? It was just like, all of these students get free range on her body so that they can learn, And I know that they were going outside the room and like reporting to the attendant. She's like, well, what do you think? Like it was some kind of, like she was a mannequin, like a doll that they were, being tested on.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was so horrifying. And she ended up having a forceps delivery. And the OB that delivered him was able to rotate, but it was like, it was horrible. It was horrifying. And so like that image of these people like nonchalantly walking in and just like using her body as I don't know what you would say about that. A model, like when we practice IV skills on a dummy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have an experience like that.
I do, but I don't know if I want to talk about it.
It's okay.
No,
It can be very general.
I know, it can be very general. I just felt incredibly I didn't feel good about a situation when I didn't get the birthing person's consent to do a vaginal exam, and I went, and the midwife I was working with told me to go in after her so I could feel what she was feeling. And I knew that the mom didn't want that, but the midwife had me do it anyway. And that's the only experience I've had doing a vaginal exam to like feel. So like, it'll be interesting learning how to do vaginal exams when we don't do vaginal exams.
I actually remember when you reached out to me about me being your preceptor, I'm like, as long as you're not looking for a lot of hands-on, because I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this.
It's not going to be exciting.
Yeah, as I get closer to my cycle, you can see what 2 centimeters feels like. But, again, I mean, maybe there are situations where we're, in care with clients that you have like a really deep connection to, and you're like, what are your thoughts on me doing one exam on you if it feels right in the moment, and maybe that's something that they're like, I love you, I want you to have that experience, or not, because I remember I had that as a student once. I'm trying to remember who it was, but she was just like, oh yeah, I have no problem with that, and that's how I got my first. It feels so yucky to even say got my first.
It's so tough. I know, because I think about that and I'm like, how, but if it's a skill I should have, but probably won't use very often, obviously. But
if you're working and your purpose is to serve families, and they want one.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, it's not really rocket science,
That's what I thought,
I felt
well,
like
I
bananas
hold
the
on,
first time.
I wasn't done, peeps.
Right.
It's not rocket science once you can find the cervix. I feel like it's a deep mystery in there, and everything feels very squishy and similar. Yes, I guess you have a leg up being a lesbian, but I have felt my own tissues, but it's very different in labor, right?
I mean, I feel like I feel really confident in this space.
I'm just saying it all turns to butter. It really does turn to butter when you're in there, and then there's like a head in the way, and you're like, okay, but if I can feel the head, where's the cervix? Oh wait, it's behind it, it's deeper, and she's in labor, so it's not like you're just like, take your time, so there's like all these layers to it. I feel like once you find the cervix, it's not hard, but sometimes there's the like, okay, there's not that much room in here, why can't I find it? Like, where is it? And you're trying to be quick and efficient and not hurt her, and so
finding a posterior cervix, I feel like is a big, like once you feel comfortable with that, and I speak quiet, then I feel like that's a big deal, and I warn people about that, because
isn't that the part that dilates first though? So when that's what I've read, that the cervix dilates posteriorly.
I just mean when it's tucked behind baby's head. Yes, you are correct. But like when you can't feel it because it's tucked behind the baby's head, then you can't you can't get any information. I mean, it usually means it's not time to push, but also when people, another topic, cervical sweeps. Anyway, okay, I'll leave that there for right now. But yeah, I think it's just on student stuff, and next time I want you to chime in more, but how do you get that experience, and the difference between like when I was pregnant, I'd just be all go for a girl because I support midwives and like I am comfortable with that in my body. So like consent. And there's like a vibe from people who are like, totally, like your student, like this is my fourth baby, like get up in there, versus like a preceptor kind of trying to like sneak it in.
Totally. And her heart was in the right place. It didn't feel right to me.
Sure, right.
So consent. But I mean, we could go on and on about that.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up because we have an appointment to get to.
We do.
But thank you everyone for joining in, listening in. Let's see, maybe we should read off some more of the other topics we want to cover. Little teasers. So we have a list of topics, and some of them are the Your Baby Will Die card.
We're not going to start early.
And by that, I'm really looking forward to that one. By that, I mean other care providers, not us, like pulling the dead baby card to get you to do what they want you to do.
And then we wanted to talk about maternal weight gain. We wanted to talk about our mental health as midwives, how we run our practice. I didn't write this down. I'm confused. Yes, other things. So we have a list of topics, and we're going to be doing some interviews soon about conscious conception, and yeah, lots of fun stuff ahead. So
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We're really excited to get this going. This is the Born Wild podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Born Wild Podcast. You can find me, Leah Ritter, at Bay Area Home Birth.
You can find me, Sophia Henderson, at sophiabirth.com.
You can find me, Emma Ray, REA, at mamamoonbirthservices.com or Emma Ray on Instagram.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to be alerted to new episodes, and give us a 5-star review if you feel like we have earned it. Thanks.